the salaries of everyone working at the company I was working at. It was a smaller, startup digital ad agency with about 60 employees total. And someone from HR was making copies of a document that listed everyone's salary and left the original on the glass of the copier. I found it and turned it back in, but not before I went through that list to see what everyone else made, and discovered that a couple new hires working the same position as me were making more than me. So after turning it in, I met with my manager and used my newfound knowledge to my advantage to successfully negotiate for a raise, along with a tacit promise that I wouldn't divulge what I knew to anyone else in the company. Leaving work late one evening, I saw the HR director and CFO in a dark office shredding papers. No, that's not an euphemism. I didn't say anything but quietly walked on down the hall. 2 weeks later, we were raided by the SEC and several people were charged with cooking the books. I found a letter between my parents back when my dad was in the army, 10 years before I was born. When cleaning out the house, he was saying how they should get a divorce because it just wasn't seeming to work out. 16 years after I was born, they did end up getting a divorce. I've never talked to them about it. Worked for a downtown metropolitan hotel for a long time, and I've seen a lot I wasn't supposed to see. Probably the worst was a kid with an old man. Check this guy in at like 1 in the morning. Not uncommon because people travel to different times. But he was alone. Like an hour later he asked for something like a towel or blanket. Anyways, dispatched our runner to deliver it. After, the runner comes to me and says he thinks something is wrong because he caught a glimpse of someone and the old guy was trying hard to block the entrance. Being that we were supposed to take stuff like human trafficking seriously, I asked our maintenance to cut his power so we would get a call to come up to try and fix the problem. Monsieur, he does, and I go up with him to apologize for the inconvenience because the guy was also a torture member. Sure enough, we hear a kid in the bathroom hiding. Tried to ask who the kid was and the old guy tried everything to shut us down from throwing his status around to bribing. Called the cops and let them deal with it. Back in 1997, I started work at a new job and took over the office of a salesman who had recently been fired. I was in IT, using the same computer that had been set up for sales. My first task was to install all the software I'd need. The computer hard drive was almost full, so I poked around and found a ton of folders filled with prawn. Went to my supervisor, and he said to delete it, warning me that the salesman had been fired for downloading prawn. Over the next few weeks, I kept finding secret prawn folders on the company's network. Not only had he downloaded enough prawn to max out his computer's HD, he had the network at about 90% capacity. When I was done deleting all the folders I could find, the server capacity was less than 50%. Dude was seriously addicted to prawn. When I was about 16, I was snooping in my parents' wardrobe. Found a diary written by my mother when she was 14, from the year 1970. Read some beautiful and brilliantly written entries about meeting and dating my dad, who was 16 at the time. Had to read a little between the lines in some slightly later entries as they were written with such flowery language. In one such entry, all of a sudden she discloses that she's had an abortion, performed by my grandfather, an anesthesiologist she never told anyone. I was in elementary school playing basketball. I shot the ball, but it ended up going over the fence on the other side was someone's backyard. My teacher requested that after school I knock on the door of the house where the ball had landed to get it back, and so I did. I did not expect a woman wrapped in a towel with one of her nipples revealed to answer the door. I was shocked but carried on with my mission. For those wondering, she stated she did not have the ball. I found a suitcase full of dildos under my mom's bed when I was 8. Found out a relative who everyone believes to be filthy rich and always throws extravagant parties. Put his kids in expensive private schools. his wife shopping and eating fine dining, his broken closets declaring bankruptcy, he's in deep debt and that he hasn't paid his bills in months, and from what I could see, he owes a loan shark too. Now, every time I see him post an invite to my mom, I cringe at the thought of him owing more money. My mom knows, but I never told her. She just knows. Happened to a friend of mine. She was dating this dude forever. They broke up and he moved out. She was devastated. About a month later, she was cleaning out old stuff and found a receipt for a ring that he had bought for her and never given her. That's how she found out that he had once intended to propose before he fell out of love with her. She was hurt pretty bad about that. Just 2 days ago, at a community pool, a teenage couple who entered into the pool area went into the hot tub, stood up to stretch my legs and looked over to, well, happy fun time in the hot tub. It was midday. I cringed pretty hard, but I laughed even harder when the neighborhood cop showed up. David Copperfield show. I was at an angle that allowed me to see the volunteers running out from the stage during a disappearing act. My mom gave me an old laptop of hers when I was about 13 and I was scrolling through random pics she had left on it of my little brother's football games, and then boom, nudes of my mother. Back when I was a teenager, we hosted a New Zealander at our house for a couple weeks. Guy gets to our place after the flight, and about 10 minutes later I'm walking around my house to see where he's at. The door to his room is partially open, and the dude is laying face down on the bed and humping the ever-loving fuck out of a pillow. I backed away slowly like Homer when he saw Apu cheating on his wife. I felt bad for the pillow. Edit. For all of you asking, no, it was not a wool pillow and it didn't resemble a sheep. I once arrived early to pick up a girl for a first date. She was renting a small garden apartment behind a bigger house. It was just after dusk and I walked around the corner. The sliding door was standing open and she was inside walking around, brushing her hair, wearing only her underwear. She did not see me, so I just walked back around that corner and waited another 10 minutes. When I walked round again, she had a dress on. I never told her. Edit. Since a few asked, the date went well. I only got to see her underwear again several weeks later. Years ago, a colleague had an old smartphone that he brought in to give to another coworker. Theirs broke. The phone was sitting on the new owner's desk, but she hadn't yet tried it out, as it was still charging after months of not being used. We were talking about how cool it was with the coworker. Smartphones were not widespread yet, and I picked it up to see how it felt in my hand. I pressed a button and the first thing that I saw was a Google search for lump on anus. I quickly put the phone back down. This must have been the last thing he searched for when he last used it a long time ago, and forgot about it. Me and a friend snuck away from a house party at 2 a.m. once. We wanted to go to this local abbey. We were exploring the grounds and generally having a nice time when we see 2 cars stop nearby. Instinctively we hid in some bushes and witnessed what was clearly a large drug trade. We definitely were not supposed to see that. We waited for them to finish their business and then we headed back to the party. My dad's AA chips. Learned it's why my parents got divorced. Proud of him for being in recovery though. When I was 11, I walked into my mom's bedroom and saw my mom and her husband doing a 69. We never spoke about it. Years later, when I was 24, she walked into my bedroom and saw my BF naked with a boner. We never spoke about that either. As a kid, I saw the scene from Poltergeist where the clown pulls the kid under the bed. My entire bedroom was filled with clown pictures and toys. I was upset. My camp counselors slung-locked the bathroom door. Buddy borrowed my dad's camera, found out he was gay. I found invitations to my big surprise 18th birthday just lying on the floor a few weeks before the event. I had to act surprised when the time came to walk through the door to the party, which I did. The only thing is, my twin brother also knew, which I didn't know at the time. And let's just say his acting skills are really bad, so we both found out in different ways about the surprise party, but neither of us knew that we found out about it. So when I walked through the door for the surprise, I could tell from his reaction that he knew. Back in the day, I would try to download anime episodes and clips off of P2P services. This was the days of Kazaa, before people widely recognized that P2P programs were hives of illegal prawn. And I'm one of the kids who was introduced to all sorts of disturbing stuff this way. The worst, though, was a small clip of a crying girl. Late teens. 20 at the most. It was only about 10 seconds long, but at about the 6-second mark, about the time I was sighing and saying, "Ugh, of course this isn't Goku," someone shot her in the head. I hadn't even noticed the gun at her temple until her skull was shred to pieces every once in a while. I remember that, and it makes me wonder who she was, who mourned her, and what sort of sick person films that. Edit. Lots of folks are saying the video might have been a fake. Even a well-known one. I sure hope so. 10-year-old me didn't know that. Of course, it didn't mess with me too badly. But I never got the thought of how blood in the movies is never quite a dark enough red out of my mind. My supervisor plowing an operator in the butt in the work showers. He just looked at me, then looked back at dude's head and started going for broke. I left. None of us ever acted like it happened. I watched Ems try to resuscitate my dying mother. I DK how to tell stories well, and this is something I have tried to repress and never really talked about at all. So please bear with me. We were swimming at this place called Cecil's Backyard Water Park. Labor Day weekend. Lots of drinking and partying. My mom was one of the people drinking that day. Last place we saw her, she was in the water drunk. My aunt, her sister, was making food for everyone. And when she finished, she noticed my mom wasn't there and started to worry. We started looking for her, but we couldn't find her. We searched bathrooms, ditches, woods, etc. Panic started to set in for our group. 15 minutes passed and I hear, "Someone found her." I turned around and managed to witness a man pulling her from the water. They performed CPR. EMS and police shortly arrived and tried to save her but couldn't. It's crazy how this one event in my life, an hour of my time, changed everything about the location. We were at this where some guy literally dug up a big hole and filled it with water. He charged admission for people to enter, and it was quite a popular place. 100 plus people on a busy day. As a kid you don't think much of it, but the place was a recipe for disaster. A lot of drunk adults, no lifeguards, and deep waters. We had been there plenty of times, so we felt safe. And #X200B. Writing this was pretty hard, but I never talked about it, so I felt I should just write something to a bunch of faceless people on the internet. Thank you for reading, and I am sorry for any grammatical errors I made. And #X200B. Edit. Thank you for silver, and thank you to everyone commenting kind things. I really appreciate the kindness. I saw my birthday present in advance. I hated it, and wasn't sure whether to tell my girlfriend as much. In the end I just used my advance notice to practice a good, genuinely surprised and grateful reaction. We broke up a few months later because we had so little in common. I've since learned that honesty tends to work better if you want a relationship to work long-term. This year happened when I was 7. I found the Tom and Jerry DVD I had lost in the back of a drawer. In celebration, I decided to watch it again. By the time my mother walked into the living room and saw me watching a threesome, I was already scarred for life. She took away the entire DVD collection, millions being deleted from the accounting software and books being reprinted without those money, so that the company wouldn't get a fine for tax evasion, or go bankrupt, I guess. I was the one in charge of doing it, and I couldn't tell anyone what I was working on for 2 weeks. I was young and I didn't know better. Fuck those guys. Edit. Just to clarify, the doing it I'm not an accountant but an IT guy. I didn't reprint the books or signed anything. I was only asked to delete the data from the system this year. I came home from working my second job to my now ex-wife having happy fun time with some guy in our house. A bit boring. But I found an engagement ring in a closet 6 months before my boyfriend popped the question. In those 6 months I kept going back to the closet to put the ring on my finger and admire it. One time when I was around 9 years old, I woke up to take a leak in the middle of the night. I saw that the TV was still on in my parents' room through the tiny opening in their bedroom door. My bathroom's near my parents' room. I went to check up on them. And when I opened the door, my God, I can never erase what I saw. I saw my mom on the edge of the bed and my dad eating her out with all his might. I literally said, "Mama," and they didn't even hear me because they were so into it. So I just ran quickly back to my room. I remember the next morning, during breakfast, I asked my mom if there was any more juice left and she said, "There's no more. Your dad has the last cup of juice." And then my dad said, "You can drink the rest of it if you want." He offered his cup of juice to me and I looked at the rim of the cup and already felt sick to my stomach. I'm 20 now and I still can't believe I remember seeing that. TLDR. Saw my dad going to town on my mom in the middle of the night. I saw my mom giving my dad a blowjob, but it was on a video on his phone.